Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala syarafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are continuing our free life coach training program. You can access and get yourself certified as a Islamic life coach for you to build up your career, as well as for those in the universities and so on, your CV, and then later on you can also along the way help the mosque, the community center, NGO and so on, using your skills in terms of motivation, coaching, mentoring and counseling. So we have explained to you the 4 modules. We have the motivation module, coaching module, mentoring module. Now we are in the mentoring module and then the counseling module, and we are discussing our trust model for mentoring. TRUST. I have covered trust, rapport. Now I'm going on unique, you, and then synchronicity and time bound. So I have explained to you how Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an, Imam Ali, gave us this idea of how we are going to nurture our children in terms of the 4 phases in their life. Alright, from birth to 7 years old, give them all the tender loving care and nurture them in a wonderful family life. Alright, then from the age of 7 to 14, you encourage the child to have knowledge, education and so on. And this is where this is a critical age, because when we talk about the modern psychology, this age is somehow has been missed out, especially in building up the basis of understanding Islam and how to practice Islam. So that's why in our book, Post-Islamic Psychology, we have a very good idea of how from 7 to 14 we are going to nurture them in terms of the Khalifa method. And then from 14 to 21, this is where the adolescents and the teenagers having problem. This is where we bring in Dr. Dan Siegel essence model. All right, and then from 21 years of birth, they become matured, growing up to become matured adult, expressing their full personality as a good human being. So when I explain to you this idea of adolescent's brain going through this pruning and myelination process, and how the brain become efficient, and how this brain is shifting from just absorbing, but now it is cutting down and then improving its efficiency in terms of its speed, in terms of the action potential. There's also development in which there are certain changes which we must be very cognizant of, and this is where we talk about first the emotional spark. They are very emotional in that sense. Number 2, we have to develop social engagement. How are we going to actually tackle emotional spark, and then how we are going to develop social engagement, and then how we're going to understand the novelty, and then the creative exploration. So these are the 4 aspects which have both the negative and the positive influences, especially if they are influenced by the peer group pressure. So that's why within the Islamic model, when we talk about emotional spark, social engineering, novelty and creative exploration for those 14 to 21 years, according to Imam Ali, according to Dan Siegel, puberty, that is about 12 to 24 years, where this whole process of myelination and pruning is taking place, and when the brain is completely being reshaped for development, so that this young person can become an adult, fully functional adult. So what is missing within the framework of secular psychology is the inability to tackle the 7 to 14 years gap. This is where in our book, Post-Islamic Psychology, we have this Islamic model. You can go to this book, it's right on the cover of the book. This is PIP Islamic model, where our emphasis is how we're going to tackle the whole spectrum of our life from the day that we are created in the realm of Azali until the day we leave this earth, and then continuing our life in the realm of the hereafter. This is the full spectrum of our life as a Muslim. So there are certain phases that we understand, and that's why within the context of Islamic psychology, we must understand that the physical environment from the age of 7 to 14, even though it's from birth to 7 years old, where we talk about Imam Ali saying that you give them the fullness of tender loving care. From 7 to 14 is a very critical age in which you can bring in as influences, because from 7 to 14 they are still very in a way loyal to their parents, and they still look up to their parents as somebody who is of a higher status, in which they put a lot of trust and hope. So this is where Muslim parents must understand. That's why in our book, Positive Islamic Psychology, we have chapter 3, we emphasize the whole chapter 3 is on being the Caliph of Allah, and we also have little handbook like gentle reminder for little Caliphs. So we do it in our school, and we have stories, built up stories to build up your strength and your inner quality, so that you can face the challenges when you hit the 14 to 21 years of age. Because if you are not being directed in terms of spirituality, in terms of basis of iman, in the basis of akidah, basis of ibadah, basis of fiqh, you are likely to be very much influenced by the secular lifestyle, and that's where you are drawn out into the hedonistic lifestyle, or drug addiction, or free for all kind of life, and being a hippie or whatever that is now vacant in the world today. So our approach is basically go back to our model. This is where it's very important for you to understand our model. What is our model? Remember, our human self, whatever that we have, the total past learning history from the realm of Azali, remember, from the realm in which we were created by Allah, at the point when we were asked by Allah, am I not the Lord? In the realm of Alastu bi Rabbikum, we say Bala Shahidna, we witness that you are our Lord. And then we come in as a human being living on this earth. So we have our total past living history as TL, okay, TPLH, total past learning history, which consists of our, at the spiritual level, our roh, qalb, akala, our spirit, heart and mind. And then at the physical level is jasad. So this is our nafs. And whatever that happened to ourselves in terms of the total past living history is influenced by the physical environment. That means the physical environment, which is very detailed, we explain to you in this book, where the physical environment in terms of your nutrition, in terms of your housing, in terms of the societal structure, in terms of whatever that is physical, alright? Even Maslow says about that. Then you have the social environment in terms of internal and external. That means intra and intersocial developmental values that you have to put in. So this physical environment and the intra and inter-social environment will then affect your perception, which affect your total past learning history. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us what we call inner speech. This is where we develop the positive inner speech. There's automatic thoughts, as mentioned by Beck. We have these 50 to 70,000 automatic thoughts every day, and most of them are negative. 90% of them are negative, and it's repetitive. So if we can then harness this inner speech, we can change the negative physical environment and negative socio-economic as well as intra and interpersonal environment, so that our total past learning history will then become balanced. And that is possible. So that's why within Islamic psychology, positive Islamic psychology model tells us that from birth to 7 years old, that's very important. If you have a dysfunctional family, then that is already broken. But from 7 to 14 years old, as Imam Sayyidina Ali says, this is where we have to infuse with them the values of ibadah, a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there is no solution in terms of secular psychology. For secular psychology, for example, we talk about emotional spark, social engagement, novelty and creative exploration. There is no the SEMP. Where is the spiritual, emotional, mental and physical integration as an integrated human being? You must do that prior to the 14 to 21 years old, or according to Dan Siegel is 12 to 24 years old, which is not much different. So who are going to guide them prior to that? Because if you can develop the social and physical environment, the social environment and the development of inner speech in terms of infusing with them the understanding of that we are the servant of Allah, His Caliph on this earth from 7 years old. That's why we have a lot of examples of how to become a resistant person towards all the evil of this world by using Khalifa method and by this little reminder of being little Khalifa. So from 7 to 14, we put a lot of emphasis of developing the understanding, basic understanding. Oh, we are the Caliph of Allah, we are the servant of Allah, we must strive to make ourselves good. So how do you make ourselves good? For example, if my friend offer me a cigarette, no, smoking is not a good thing to do, not only from the perspective of health, it's also not a good from the perspective of Islam, it is haram. So you are giving them some identity as a Muslimin and a Muslimat. And that is very important. 7 to 14, according to Imam Ali, this is where you bring them towards, when they reach adolescence, they have some foundational values which then can counteract, because this inner speech now has been developed towards Iman, Islam and Ihsan in whatever small measure. Remember, you cannot put the full blast. Everything is haram, haram, haram. That's not the way. It is by gentle reminder. That's why our little book called Gentle Reminder for Little Khalifa. And then we talk stories. For example, say nice word to others. Then spend your time wisely. It's our little stories. This is by Professor Muhammad Madi Jenkins before he passed on. He used this to teach our children in the school. So every little story he says, we transcribe it and it's always there. For example, Allah is always there for you. Alright, so what does the story? I read the story. There are times when you feel alone and sad. Sometimes when you are sad, you feel that no one loves you or cares about you, and you feel as if you have no friends. During these times, you must remember that Allah is always there for you, even when even when you are alone or when you are sad. So don't feel like there's no one that is there for you when you are sad. Allah always is close to you and always will be with you. When you remember this, it will help you to be a good Muslimin or Muslimat and help you to become a successful person in the future. So remember, whenever I think there is no one for me, I must not forget that Allah is always with me, watching over me, helping me and giving me His tender loving care. So you can see, we develop this idea of being there before they go into the 14, having this emotional spark, having this social engagement novelty, which I've given some idea of how to do the positive ways in terms from an Islamic perspective. We have, from the age of 7 to 14, we have imbued in them this idea of being the Caliph of Allah on this earth. This idea that we are here to live a good life. And this, the residual effect, naturally when they go to the next phase of 14 to 21, some of it may be lost because of the influences of the world, the dunya and the open system in terms of this world today in the 21st century, in terms of the internet, the influences that you get from the media, from peer pressure and so on, affects you. Alright? But because you have been prior to that 14 to 21 years old, 7 to 14 years, you have been given a good grounding in the mosque, by the parents, by your peers, by your mentors, by your friends, all together. That's why it's very important for Muslim community to get together, especially those who are living in small communities, get together, make sure that children play together. You have a small center where the children from the age of 7 to 14 can come for weekend Quranic classes. Not only that they come for weekend Quranic classes, it's religious classes, but they interact and then they play games and go for camping together, going picnic together, hiking together. So you develop a bonding within the framework of being the Caliph of Allah. So when they go through this idea of having the emotional spark, having the social engagement, having the novelty and the creative exploration, these can be Islamized in a way it is very happy, fulfilling, achievement based. So what I'm trying to say is that we have a solution. So in mentoring, remember, not only that we take from secular psychology, but we develop our model, our mentoring model, bring in this whole idea of being the Caliph of Allah, stressing the nature of being the Caliph of Allah, the servant of Allah from the age of 7 to 14. So when they reach the 14 to 21 level, they are still being restrained by the ideas infused by their mentor, their teachers, their parents, the group at the mosque and so on, to retain some values of Islam, where they're doing their salah, they're doing their fasting. There is a connection. And when you're doing all these things, inshallah, they will be safe from the evil of this dunya. This evil is getting out of control. It is destroying all the Western civilization. That's why the most highly impacted group now are the Christians. They are losing their followers at a very rapid pace because they do not have a fortress to build the inner quest and inner qualities at the age of 7 to 14. So in Islam, this is a beautiful approach. When we talk about mentoring, the uniqueness of the phases in life, remember, go back to our Positive Islamic Psychology Handbook, go back to our model, all right, and understand this model, apply it in your daily life for your children, apply it in your life as a mentor and as a coach, and inshallah, when you understand the fullness of our model, you'll be able to help make this world, shape this world to be a better world, always remembering that we are here to be good as a Caliph of Allah, striving to make ourselves good, helping others to be good, and making the world good, inshallah.